Kuzu Zangpo, welcome to the third episode of the podcast series brought to you by the Global Shaper Thimphu Hub in collaboration with UNDP Bhutan. Today's episode will highlight the voices of the youth in climate action as part of the Stockholm Plus 50 consultation meeting. But first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Dechen Wangdi. I am a shaper at Thimphu Hub. I'm also a writer and a storyteller and one of the many voices behind the story sharing platform called Humans of Thimphu. Before we dive deep into today's episode, allow me to share a few minutes about what Stockholm Plus 50 is all about. It is an international meeting to be held in Stockholm, Sweden on 2nd and 3rd June 2022 to commemorate the 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment and celebrate 50 years of global environment action. The 1972 conference was a landmark meeting that put humanity's relationship with the earth and global concern for environment on the international agenda. The Stockholm Conference has been a cornerstone of every international conference and treaty on the environment over the last 50 years by linking environmental protection with sustainable development and producing concrete ideas on how government could work together to preserve the environment. It underpins our most important multilateral environmental agreement such as the Convention on Biodiversity, the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Bhutan was among one of the first signatories in the United Nations Conference in Climate Change and Convention on Biodiversity in Rio. The Royal Government of Bhutan, in collaboration with the UNDP country office in Bhutan, is currently carrying out the national stakeholders consultation to prepare for the Stockholm Plus 50 conference. To complement this process, the Global Shaper Thimphu Hub, in collaboration with Radio Valley 99.9 FM with support from the UNDP, is organizing a 4-part series on Stockholm Plus 50 to highlight youth perspective for a shared vision for a healthy and prosperous planet while accelerating progress on the SDGs and multilateral environmental agreements. To ensure that our future solutions are inclusive and sustainable, it is vital that young people aged less than 28 years in the country, who comprise more than half the population, are heard and brought into the difficult but important conversation of the future of the country, as well as the planet. The episodes invite relevant youth representatives working in diverse sectors such as agriculture, government, social enterprises, technology, media, education, etc., to connect their experiences, lived as well as professional, to the conversation on Stockholm Plus 50 episodes. More importantly, the episodes aim to be driven by empathy and connection by engaging with guests on opportunities for smart and green development and on building bridges and allyship that brings policies to action. To help kickstart this episode, today I have here with me Tandin and Tshering, two amazing young people and proud women who are really showing us what it means to be climate advocates on the ground level through Tandin's initiative called Revive Bhutan, which literally is turning the rack into riches from waste to novelties, and Tshering's entrepreneurial venture called Deki Natural Dye, which aims at preserving an age-old tradition of making natural dyes. Moving forward this is a question to Tandin. So, of course, I did share that it was during the lockdown that you actually got the idea, but I relate lockdown with a lot of lockdown blues, I call them. But how did that inspire you to create something like this, that later on went on to become so popular and so relatable, and even was addressing an issue as important as climate change?
So, when I began Revive, it was a very small home-based project that was supposed to happen online. And when I was actually making the social media page, it was just for me to have a channel to showcase what I usually do. I was always, very, how do I put it? I've always been a person who really cherishes things that I get. So even if it's a gift, I would try and keep the gift wrapper to use for something else. So when the lockdown was, when the COVID hit our country, and when we were really getting into our homes and isolating ourselves as much as we could, that is when I thought that the easiest resources available around me were the things that I had always had stored, right? So waste was one thing that was around me and around a lot of people. So I thought maybe I could use my social media page to, showcase what I do, something like that. It was just supposed to be a very casual space for me to show what I do. But then after I made the page, people were interested, and I then found out that a lot of people were doing it at their levels, and they used to send me messages on the page, and that is how I think the page grew. So something that just began very casually for me, something that was just supposed to be a channel for me to do whatever I wanted to, became kind of big, and then it gathered a lot of attention. So that is how I think Revive went to be something that it is now. And to be really honest, I did not really start Revive to say that I was going to advocate towards climate change and to get into bigger topics like this, which are of relevance now. It was never an intention to have it for it to become this way. But yes, after a lot of people started taking these as into their daily habits as well, like whatever I was doing, they were also trying to do that at home. And then I realized that a lot of individual behaviors that all of us have could actually contribute towards something bigger than what we all are here for, right? So I think that is how it became more about advocating, and it became more present on social media.
Well, I guess not everybody will have a productive lockdown, and the whole COVID has been about people staying locked up in their house and not being able to be productive. So I guess that's a good story for me, because I always look at lockdown as a way for people to rethink their behaviors, right?
Yes.
So I guess when it was the lockdown, and then there were a lot of social media news coming about how certain things were going back, how pollutions were getting less, and how waters were getting cleaner. So yeah, those were the Mother Nature doing her part, and I'm glad that you did your part.
And I think during when COVID was at its peak, at its peak, a lot of other celebrities were also really encouraging people to stay home, right? And they were really coming up with activities that people could do at home. Mine was just a minor thing that also was keeping people active. Then we started sharing it online. So I think even if it has helped even one or two people come out of their lockdown blues, like you said, I think that is how the movement just became what it is now.
Well, yes, because the Revive Bhutan Instagram page has quite a lot of followers, and I'm one of that. And I've been following that, and I realized that there are some Bhutanese who just don't like to watch DIY videos. They actually make these things, right? So, like, it's like, you see a lot of things being done about DIYs, right? And it's even become a very trending thing. But yeah, thank you for showing us that it can be done, provided that you're not lazy, and then you value your time. Similar question to you, Tshering Mola. When you started Deki Natural Dye, what were your inspirations? And I think I read it somewhere that it was the women in your families who passed it down to you, and then you, being an educated person, did not have your egos and decided to, say that, mother, I'm going to follow your footstep, culture first.
Thank you very much, Dechen, for the question. supporting Tandin already, I had a very fruitful lockdown as well, because that was the time I was rethinking and looking at the family legacy, the skills that were passed down, as you said. Actually, my late grandmother used to dye natural dye clothes, especially for monks, and that is how my mother saw it, and then she passed it down to me as well. So as you said, I was serving as a teacher, and then I served as a history teacher. I know the importance of culture preservation, and I also served as a project coordinator. So therefore, having these experiences, I always thought that I could do something. I could fill the gap. I could see the loop, you know. So on the other hand, there are policies the government is implementing on the right directions, but on the other hand, our young people, our students, they're not getting onto that track. They're not understanding what policies are doing. So therefore, I thought that maybe I have a role, I have a responsibility to play there, and that's how I chose to shift myself towards the career my mother pursued, because I believe that world is transformative, and young people are transformative. The time is changing, so the same problem that my mother or my grandparents faced cannot be the same problem I face. For the same problems, we cannot provide same solutions. Therefore, I felt that for this generation, I can play an important role to change and inspire young entrepreneurs or young people to take up entrepreneurship, to take up green business, so that you become self-sufficient and you also achieve the GNH goals.
Wow. I mean, that's so nice. And then I'm now really interested to know, like, because I think when we say that our mothers and our grandparents, they used to do that, we have such strong memories, right, from our childhood. Like, there are some process that, although you don't even remember what they were about, but you know what they were doing, right? For example, dyeing is such an intricate process, I believe, right? That includes so many things. Some things will just have you hooked if you are just an observer. So, do you remember anything, how as a child they were done, and then how, what were the feelings that were going inside you?
Yeah, I actually, to be very frank, I was mentored from the childhood itself.
Wow.
I was told to segregate waste, not because we were working towards climate or climate actions, but because my grandparents or my mother wanted to use that waste, the biodegradable waste or vegetable waste, to make it into dye. For them, it was resources. For me, it was waste. So I was taught from the small age itself to segregate waste. That was one. Another is when the monks used to go from Thimphu to Punakha as
Are we
for
talking about your grandmother's time?
yeah, yeah,
So it's really long ago,
yeah,
no?
yeah.
Wow.
So when the monks used to travel from Thimphu to Punakha for their winter solstice, they used to keep their scarves, the extra scarves they had, to dye it with something called a zim plant, and she used to do it. And then my mother then passed it down to me, and then said we have to do it. And I couldn't figure out the reason why we had to do it, because we could easily buy something easily from the town. So I didn't have that awareness, being educated, but I didn't have that awareness. So therefore, I feel that this awareness is lacking. That's why we are not interested in looking up to our parents, looking up to our grandparents or society of what they are doing, or why they are doing something like that. So therefore, I think I had that childhood where I was pushed into awareness. I would say that.
Wow. I mean, I could really relate with this because even, every Bhutanese household have this, a clash of cultures, because our parents, they almost bring something with them and they are so, stubborn to follow that, whereas we born into a different time, we have rather, different beliefs about things, right? For example, me and my sister and my brother, we would go to a shop and just buy something and bring it home, and then my mother would say that those things were not needed, right? You will just end up creating more waste. And I always thought that my mother, who has never been to school, what does she know about, climate change and things like that? But I guess they did it for a different reason, but it served the purpose, right?
Yeah, yeah.
At the end, yeah. So this almost takes me to my next question. You know, I want to ask is do you think that our culture has a lot of environmentally friendly practices? Something, for example, I think recycling. We might be talking about it a lot, but it's been done, right? We know about how the animal waste are never wasted. They go somewhere, whereas you know we would think of that as an innovation right now, but it used to exist. So, is there any example? So I'll pass the mic to Tandin.
So I think there is a very thin line between understanding our culture and actually that our culture also backfiring environmental challenges in Myanmar. Because I think for us in our culture, after we are done with the rindo, we also throw the tombs in the water batamo, which is actually making the streams and rivers dirty. But it's because it's part of the culture. We cannot really argue with that because that has existed for some time.
Yeah.
So I think there is a very thin line of how to really make a, how do we put it now, how to really understand our culture and then point it saying that this is also hazardous to the environment of it.
Exactly.
Because
So I think when we talk about culture, culture is really broad.
Yeah,
and there
culture is
are
very
two
broad.
very opposing things that we do, right?
Yes.
For example, at one hand we protect environment, and the other we end up doing just the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So
So, like, even when we are hoisting, is that the correct word? Prayer flags. At the end of the day, when it gets faded and when there's no one to take care of that, that also becomes not so pleasant on the eyes when we are going to places to hike and stuff, right? But we do it because it's part of the culture. Now we cannot say our parents are wrong to do that because that is how we were just,
I think we were all,
We were-
born into this. I
yes.
think nobody invented that.
yeah. So I think
right.
that argument is a very, it's quite sensitive. And I
It
am
is
not
indeed
educated enough to
sensitive,
be
yeah.
really
I don't think
commenting
we
on
can
this.
talk about this.
Yeah.
Um, even though if you want to add a lot of logics to that, but
Exactly.
then I think it's our culture, and then at the end of the day, we are proud about it, Mola. So I'll move to Tshering Mo. What do you think? Do you think because you come from a background where your families used to do natural dyes, and I think you mentioned that the waste were used for making those dyes. So those can be one example. But do you think other examples where our cultural practices also contribute to environmental conservation?
I would like to argue on Tandin's point here that so sorry.
With due respect,
With due respect. I feel that to a certain level, our culture does protect environment. That is because if you listen to the proverbs or proverbs set down by the grandparents, some way there is a hidden agenda behind that towards cultural preservation. If I give you a small example like we say that is Ludo, or we say that this mountain has these deities and everyone. So it is somehow protecting us from degradation of environment. So I feel that is one. Another is we were discouraged to bring packets food to lagangs for offerings. So therefore, I feel that on the other side, maybe the packets has become a problem for the monks. So therefore, they have rejected this. So people, although blindly takes fruits and other things, but on the other hand, we are working towards conservation of environment. That's because we are not taking the packaged goods for offering. So I feel that Bhutan's culture is good enough to conserve the environment. However, it has to be transformative. As I said, it has to change. The way we approach should be different as per the changing time and situation.
That's really amazing. It just struck me right now that our culture is not perfect, because I used to think that we were so environmentally conscious that hearing from Tshering, I just realized that actually not really. But then it's good enough, as you mentioned, because we're doing something. Maybe it's very different from other cultures, right? Where creating ways and then exploiting resources is all it is to the at the end of the day that people do, right? So we will this was a really nice kind of a storytelling, and I really enjoyed. At the same time, we added a little talk about culture and everything. Mola. Now let's go back to your initiatives like Deki Natural Dye and Revive Bhutan. So what are the problems that you're actually trying to address through your initiatives, and why is it important to you?
So with Revive, what I'm really trying to put out there is for people to purchase less and really try to reuse and recycle whatever is around them before really getting into purchasing something else. Why is it important to me is because I was just thinking about how to answer this yesterday actually. Then I was thinking then I reflected back on why I started this. Like I said, firstly, I always had the habit of keeping things with me so that I would be able to reuse it and, make it of use somehow, all the waste that I've collected. Number one, I think it was because I always was financially challenged. So whatever I think I tried to get creative out there. With whatever I had, I tried to make it fancy in my own definition. I think number two is also because I think people can be really thrifty and really reflect on how you live your life and get things right. You don't have. I don't know if it might sound a little sensitive, but I think we do not really have to keep up with all things fancy.
That's not sensitive at all to me.
Like I think that we don't really have to keep up with everything that is fancy. Whatever is around you, if you could try to use that, I think that would all the small efforts, like of you trying to use things to the maximum and try to replace it with quality but lesser stuff instead of purchasing whatnot. So. Yeah, if that answered your question.
It did. It even gave me more questions to ask, which I would come back to, but let's hear from Tshering first.
Yeah, so your question is what problem or the issue I'm working towards. So first of all, before I even answer, I would like to ask you as a host one question. How confident are you wearing that go and then you can say that I'm chemical free?
Well, it didn't. I have to be very honest. I think although you know that you're a good person, you don't harm anyone, but even at the end of the day, you do end up harming someone, right? And with the type of choices I make in terms of clothes and in terms of shoes and even in terms of food that I eat, somebody's getting harmless. So I cannot be very confident, but at the same time, now this might, I might need to prove this later on. But I would say that I have been really frugal when it comes to clothes. For example, I have friends who tell me that, Dechen, why are you wearing that same outfit you've been wearing since last week? And then don't you have some money to get it? Because now you get it. Clothes are very cheap, right?
Yeah.
It used to be expensive before. Now it's cheap, very affordable, and then you have so many choices. So yeah. But when it comes to go, I don't know if this is the question answer you're looking for, but I mostly wear clothes that are woven by my own mother, right? And before I didn't really value them at all. I thought like my mother, she's just trying to save money, trying to be like, smart. Why won't she just let me buy something from the shop that's ready-made, so that she don't have to like, set up her loom and then make a lot of noise in the house. It feels like, she was doing something wonderful, because there's no chemical being added, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back to the issue I'm addressing issue of you and I'm addressing issue of environment. I'm addressing the issue of the world. That is because textile industry, because of the chemical and the chemical it uses in making it, is the second largest pollutant in the world according to Yale University. So therefore, now when people wants to switch to natural dyes or natural dye clothing, they need to understand why it affects their body, why it affects the environment, or why is it bad. So therefore I thought that maybe I play a role there to create awareness. See, my values are same as Tandin, because I feel that people should buy less, but with values. If you know the story behind communities that are making that natural dyes, if you know the stories behind who is weaving it, or be it your mother who is weaving it for you, you'll be last person to throw this go to the dustbin, right? Because you have that attachment, you have that love in it. So therefore, I am working towards that. So thank you for answering the question. Yeah.
very well. I actually, talking with you two, made me realize so many things about myself, right? And that's is the thing about the whole, consumerism and all that. We think we know enough, but we never know enough, right? It's always for learning something, and if you are someone who is willing, then I think you should always try to become a better person, a better consumer. Yeah. So from both of you, I think I said I just got a question because of what Tandin answered, as I think the world is right now grappling with the issues of waste, and especially textile, as you mentioned, is the second most polluting industries, and I think it's true because the number of clothes that we like to buy, the number of the way fashion works, influences and forces people to buy at a rate that is alarming, and then when people just keep on buying and wearing them and discarding them, I think we all know the word called fast fashion, right? Today the world is suffering because of that, and there is an interesting thing that I recently found out, how fast fashion affects everyone, right? It's not just people in the first world country who buy them that have to wear a very cheap quality clothes, but it's also people everywhere in Africa, in Asia, everywhere, because clothes are not meant to be cheap and low quality, because they get donated and they get shipped to all these third world countries where they reused again, right? There's an entire market out there in Africa and in Asia and even in Bhutan, right? We have JB, our own Jagung Bazaar. So there, these clothes, they come and we do buy them, right? When I was in college in Kharbandi, I have a lot of friends who used to go to these places and they used to buy them, and they used to get really good clothes actually, clothes that would last them even though they were second hand. With fast fashion, this whole business where we make use of reuse of these kind of stuffs are now at a risk. So what do you think about fast fashion, like Tshering?
To me, I think that fast fashion is playing with our psychology, because it makes us think that we need more clothes. My grandmother used to buy. My grandmother used to buy two clothes. Let's say 2 kiras in 1 year. Now I buy 10 to 12 kiras in 1 year. So that is the consumption pattern we have at the moment. So we need to consciously think. We need to look back and like how you said about the JB and everything, you have to question the human mentality and the fundamental rights when it comes to you, the clothes that you buy, when it comes to you at the cost of a cup of coffee. A coffee in Thimphu would cost 150 niltrum, and a t-shirt is at 150 niltrum. So therefore, I think fundamentally you have to be conscious as a consumer. You have to ask yourself, if I need this, is it necessary? We go on diets like example, we detox our body, right? Sometimes we have intermittent fasting and everything, but people don't think about fasting on clothes. Why can't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. Why can't we
Exactly.
buy? Why can't we stop buying for a week? Why can't we stop buying for a month? Why can't we
Exactly.
promise that to ourselves? Why is that awareness not there? The mentality. Everyone is not, of course, lucky to have a mentor from the starting till the end on the waste and the pattern of buying. So this is what I feel, that fast fashion is playing around with your psychology.
Wow. Now,
If I can supplement or
please.
compliment that, with Revive, what we try to do is we have this monthly online thrift, like a pop-up
Thrift store.
give, but we do it online. We post up on things that people would like to sell because they have purchased it on instinct and they now do not really think they can have a use to that. So no, we do it monthly. We haven't been doing it right now for COVID reasons, but with that, what I've realized is I do receive a lot of messages of people who want to sell secondhand stuff, right? There are clothes, there are other accessories, utensils, all mixed things, but I do feel like people are a little skeptical about buying clothes because we somehow or the other stigmatize when we say it's pre-loved or secondhand when it comes to that, no? So that is why I think fast fashion is, I think this is why some people may opt for, like may opt, or they are inclined more towards fast fashion and keeping up with the trend, because they are a little they have little stigmatization against the second-hand
I guess when you
clothes
said
as well.
this, I
Yeah.
think we're coming back to our culture, right? Because I think this exists in a culture where we have said that we should not wear something that is, handed down.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is, bad omen to that. There is bad energy related to
Yeah.
that. You shouldn't even wear something that is torn, right? You shouldn't, we such cultures like I said, our culture has a lot of good things, but that thing is also there which stops us from going to a thrift store, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, whenever we post stuff, also most of the time other things get sold easier than clothes, because people have a little bit of restriction towards that. They would definitely want to check. We cannot blame them for wanting to check. They check, but then there's also a bit of stigmatization against it. So then you see that all these behaviors that we are trying to encourage, it is eco-friendly. It does advocate towards sustainable living, but somehow or the other, you also have to realize that whatever we have already in our heads, all these theories that are passed down to us, also make us a little skeptical about these
Yeah.
theories.
So
But nothing like it if people like to purchase, and we are trying to give that medium platform. But from the least of what I've experienced, I can definitely say that there is a little bit of stigmatization, especially against clothes.
I guess there will always be a hesitation for people to, the whole idea comes from this logic that secondhand clothes are, not even washed, right?
Yeah.
Of course they are, right? They're washed, they're even sometimes, they just look so new, right? But people still have that idea. It's like you could sell them a cloth and then not say that they're secondhand and they'll buy it, right? Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but at the same time, I guess it's really at the end of the day, an individual's perspective on things, right? Yeah, I'm sure there are people who would buy from thrift store, because now looking at it, I think Jagang Bazaar was a thrift store that people didn't care to think that it was second hand, right? Yeah.
I have a second opinion here. I feel that if thrift store is not working because of stigmatization or mentality that our society has imposed, then why stick to that problem? Why not we look for another solution? Why can't we reuse this cloth to make something else, something new that people that would give people opportunity for employment, and that would give people an innovation idea or something like that. If the thrift thing is not working, I think it's now time we move towards something better, a new idea, a new innovation to solve this issue, because as I said, the same problem cannot be band-aided for a time being. So it's a big problem that we need to solve it. We cannot band-aid it now. We have to provide solution. We have to be the solvers of that. Young people are the solvers.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if I could add on that, I'm so sorry. Now I can see why you said we argue. So the thing is, even when we have clothes like that we try to sell, no, and if we can't sell them, we have other alternatives. We try to make it bandages for animal care houses. We try to collaborate with RSPCA. Revive is more in touch with RSPCA. We try to do that because old clothes can be mostly can be used for as bandages for animals in Nepal.
Okay.
We try to do that. We also try to recycle and reuse them, making them into tote bags and stuff. We are still not really launching all that we have right now because we are into rebranding for now, but that's a different story. But we are trying to do something like that. But what we really want to put out first is try to reuse whatever is that we get. Recently, we also were getting in school uniforms of the students, because most of the students have not gone to school for 2 years. It has been virtual learning, so the school uniforms have been as good as new, right?
Yeah.
So we try to give it back to the school so that they could try and reuse it, right? Because the clothes are of the good quality, and we made sure that we sorted it out like that. But even with when we posted about those school uniforms online, because it was already under the tagline of second hand, the easy way out is we directly donate it to a remote school, right? But firstly, what we really wanted to do was people if people could actually, if one student could actually rewear those uniforms, it would be like a 2,000 or something less on their parents' burden. No, this is what we were trying to advocate, but somehow or other there were still a little bit of skepticism, hesitation against it, hesitation against it. So we, a small team of me and my friends, we went to schools to actually give it. They do have Tarayanagi clubs and stuff where they say underprivileged students Jimmy, but we do not want to really say reuse is just for underprivileged people, right? We want it to be something that they will wear for pride, because they are saving you 2,000 or something on their parents' budget, something like that. So before we try and do things that are like, at the end of the day, animal ludu kola kadebe chunu kemi labdo sum jume batemo, or like donate betam da ludi, everyone will accept it lape. Charity has become a bit too
you can
overused for now.
send out a lot of signals by charity, that
So,
it could either be giving something out of your pure intention, or it
exactly, it could be like, I am above you, but we are trying to say that
I love
even
how
though you
interesting the approach is. That I think you said that Chingy, you wanted to donate the clothes, but you didn't want them to make them feel like they're receiving.
at the end of the day, we're all human, right? Like, who is underprivileged, who is below us? Like, donation, like charity, I think has become too over fantasized or something. I'm so sorry if that's sensitive now, but yeah, before all of that, we really try to advocate towards people reusing whatever's there, and they do it with pride. They don't do it like, oh, it was given to me because someone was kind enough to remember. Oh, I am saving my parents give money, 2,000 or something, that helps me, so lappe, take that, something like that. That
really,
would take a long
that's really
way,
interesting,
actually,
actually, and that's almost takes me to our almost the final question that I want to ask to both of you. I think you all, both of you being women, right, how hard it is or how easy it is for you to do something like this, right? Would it have been better if you were of some other gender, so this over to you first.
To be very frank, I think gender is not the important role here, because if you're conscious, if you're aware, you have the willingness to do, anyone can do it. And as long as you want to see development with proper values and goals, anyone can do it. I feel that instead of blame gaming the policies, or instead of blaming other people for not having it through, I think when you start thinking that I have the opportunity to do something, or when you start thinking that youngsters can become the agent of change, when you start thinking that way, gender doesn't even play important role there. However, in Bhutan, we have women not very much represented in the parliamentarian sessions. That's because maybe this is my opinion, that women has over the time become meek, but not now. So when they represent, maybe it's important for them to, when the male, the bigger version of male in the parliament session, when they hear these policies, I think they need to understand that first of all, when the policies are implemented, how realistic it can be, number one. Number two, how these youngsters can be included in the policy making is two. Number three, they need to understand that it starts a good amount of a good amount of years of a young person is spent in school, and if these values, developmental values or sustainable values, are not taught in school, it would be very difficult for any men or women or girl or a boy to understand the sustainable goals or environmental friendliness, nature. So therefore, I feel that I'm at my ease. I do whatever I can, because I have good hope for the yeah.
If I may, put it in a different way, I think I was, emphasizing that it should be our education that should teach things like environmental conservation and sustainability in a way that they understand and can relate. Right? It shouldn't just be a textbook knowledge, but it should be rather practical. And over to you, Tandin. What do you feel like? Does your gender, or the fact that you are let's say who you are, did it ever affect the kind of work that you do, the initiatives you put out?
I would like to say the gender does not really play a role here as well. For me, I've been really lucky, touch wood on that my family has been really supportive. And then I think whatever I picked up with my skills and trying to do whatever I am doing right now was definitely taught to me by my father to begin with. He never told me to go out of the room when he's fixing a socket or something. He would make me watch with him, right? Like how it's fixed and stuff. So before, earlier, like in my life, it's I think he was the one who never really like said that this was a guy's a male's job, so that you stay away and is a member. He would hand me the screwdrivers. I was already like fixing sockets and stuff. I think I was inclined towards that interest from a very early age because of my father. And when we mentioned the Green Feet movement, that is an initiative by Revive where we go to hiking trails and we clean it along the way. Even then, when I am supposed to be the leader and I am supposed to know the trails and go ahead lead, no, my father or my brother, the men in my life, have never said, there's a belief that wherever you go, you have to take a pata in the forest.
Wow.
So that way, he never said Butsuchiki who has a pata. No, he would say, "Oh, bumgi tendu pata chunkuchi," so that because you are the one leading it, because he would never say chulasna ju. He would say, "Go in the front. You have to be the leader, but take a small pata that is for you, not for any men who will help us or something like that." No, so that way, I think it has always been empowering to me, and then I'm very thankful and very grateful, touch wood, and all positive energy on that. But for me, gender has never been a drawback, because everyone around me, all the friends I have also, even when I am putting myself out there for videos like this or projects like this, everybody is giving me the thumbs up. Nobody says "Chibumi me mabe" or "Bum dalu rogyanzum lao" and all that. I think it is more about the people you surround yourself with, and gender. At the end of the day, even if it's a man or a woman, if you are doing something good, everyone will support you. And if it's not something that up to mark, even if it's someone like who is very smart but is not doing good, no one will support you, right? So I think gender definitely has had no impact
I'm
on
actually
me.
really happy to know that strong women like yourself never think that your identity or the way you are pulls you back, and then that's rather your strength. And then I'm also happy that how families of both of you, especially Tandin's appa, who's the force behind her, and then we know why some of us we feel so empowered because that's there in our family mula.
Yes.
I think that's also like brings back to our cultural practices where we often don't follow the normal practice of gender roles, but rather decide to empower people no matter what la. So with this, I think we have come to the end, and I would like to thank you both for coming here with me and then talking on such important issues, but at the same time have this such casual air about climate, because I guess when we talk about climate, it always gives me a little nervousness because I'm like, do I even understand this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and then I've met you people, two of you, such wonderful two young people who are literally doing things for the climate change, but at the very ground level, and then have your own understanding, and then your things, and then you are also doing things enough to advocate others. And I would just like to say that climate change is a reality,
Yes.
and then every one of us will be affected in a one way or another, and then young people sometimes are left out of this conversation, for whatever reason it is. We have to be part of this. We have to give our perspective and our views on this, because we will be a key player in this, and
Yes.
that we have to be a part of the concerted efforts and the collective actions to combat climate change. With this, I thank you both, the speakers and the supporters that made this podcast possible. Thank you and Kadinchela.